Hot on the heels of my not recommending this model on the amps under $1,000 video, we've got a Peavey 6505 Plus. Let's see if it has any of the issues that I mentioned. You'll get a chance to hear it and you'll see if you think I'm right or was right. The owner says, please retube and rebias. I'm going to open it up. Let's take a look. Some semi-solder starved joints here on these octal output tubes. And of course, they're partially buried underneath the effects return jack and the speaker jacks. So let me disconnect those. And I want to look at the ribbon cables here and at the heater connections for some discoloration. All right, there's no visual discoloration yet. Notice I don't say there's no discoloration. I say there's no discoloration yet. This is not something that might happen one day. It's something that will happen to all 5150s and 6505s eventually. Ribbon cable's not rated for the current. The little traces on the board aren't rated for the current. The connections over here aren't rated for the current. These Molex connectors, and it's common for the board to burn right over here by these heater fuses. We get these jacks out and we'll look at the output tube section. None of these were very tight. A glitch in the recording, so I have to show you some stuff after I've done it, but it's important stuff. So I pulled the speaker jacks and impedance switch. I inspected all those solder connections. They're all good. I pulled the effects loop connections. Inspected all those solder joints. They are good. I will clean these contacts because these are normal. If there's nothing plugged in, the signal is supposed to go from the send to the return. And if these contacts get dirty, you lose signal there. There were some solder joints on these output tube sockets that were not great. I reflowed those. Because this amp was made with leaded solder, not lead-free solder, I was able to add more solder very easily. They are now properly, they have the right amount of solder. They're gonna be rock solid. It was a very fast, easy process. So let me put some tubes in here and see what it sounds like. Gotta put it back together first, I guess. All right, before I change the tubes, and the owner provided new tubes, I'm gonna test the stock ones. They're Ruby branded 6L6s. They don't seem to be microphonic. I don't see any discoloration. What I want to know is, are these tubes still good for him to use as spares, or do these have a problem? Sometimes it's obvious that tubes are no good. Sometimes owners think that, hey, it's time to get new tubes, and that's great. But, if these still work, and if one of his new tubes goes out 6 months from now, it's nice to have another set that he can put in and save a gig and not have to go drop another $200 immediately. He also provided a new preamp tube. He said in case it was needed. At least as far as microphonics go, these all seem fine. It's a very normal background noise level for a 5150, 6505. And here's what it sounds like with the old tubes. Seems to be working just fine, though I will change out the tubes because he asked me to nicely. And there's a putted sound you probably hear. That's gonna go away when shielding is in place. So the amp seems very healthy. This does not mean that my warnings about these series are invalid. It just means that this one has not had those problems exhibit yet, but they are baked into the design. All right, a few changes later. It's got the new JJ6L6 GCs. The groove tube branded 6L6s that were in here were also JJs. A couple of them were just beginning to get a little bit dark, so it's probably a good thing to change them out, but they were working okay, and they are returning with the amp in the new tubes boxes as spares. I ran the heater secondaries directly to pins 2 and 7 of this octal, and from there to the quick connect, and I disconnected it here where the ribbon cable used to be. That takes all the heater current load off the ribbon connector, and you're just getting the preamp stuff through that. It really makes the board last a lot longer, decreases the chance of fire, and because I hate those ribbon cables for the main connections to HT and going to the output transformer and all that stuff, which have like 26 gauge, I replace them with 22 gauge. It's Teflon coated, so it looks really small, but that can handle the current without any problems, and it's easy to disconnect if necessary, but you can also flip the main board up without disconnecting it. So it's an easy bump up in quality. It doesn't cost a lot. It's easy to do. And after all that, this is what the amp is sounding like. Too rusty to play that stuff loud for you guys, but hey, at least you know I have good taste.